were either of you guys on a Pee Wee sports team that had like a cute team name?
Oh, cute name.
What was your team name?
I don't even remember anymore.
The yellow team?
No, we had names, but I feel like a lot of the times they would just name us after like other bigger sports teams sometimes. But I don't know. My God, what were my soccer team names? I do feel like some of them were like cutesy, and I'm just totally blanking on what they were.
The Maple Leafs.
Aren't any Pee Wee sports names?
No, my brother did a lot of soccer. I was always a Sandlot kid, so I was playing with all the kids in the neighborhood, unsanctioned ball all the
Love
time.
that. Yeah.
So
that tracks.
Not quite street legal sports. Okay. We will get into the movies. And let's start it out with a film that has been highly anticipated and feels like a pretty meaningful new chapter in one of the most meaningful cinematic universes of the past couple of years. I mean, not there's many cinematic universes. It's the most popular cinematic universe. Let's talk about Thunderbolts, the latest film in the MCU. Thunderbolts is a superhero team-up of sorts, collecting different cast-offs and one-off characters from recent Marvel properties and putting them together. It's got some echoes of the Suicide Squad. Personally, I couldn't help but think of Guardians of the Galaxy while watching it. Yelena, Bucky, the Red Guardian, that one that can phase shift through walls.
Ghost.
Whose name I get. There we go. All form a team in addition to Bob, who we soon find out is the Sentry in this scrappy action adventure directed by Jake Schreier. We're going to discuss spoilers in this review. You've been warned. Art, we've been through a string of pretty disappointing Marvel movies in the past couple of years. So is Thunderbolts the shock to the system that the MCU needs?
I think it's a very good boost to morale. Exactly what the movie is telling you is exactly what it means for the entire ecosystem of the MCU. We get all these... it doesn't matter if we talk about The Last of Us. It doesn't matter if we talk about the last MCU movie. Everyone's always upset when you're doing your job critiquing the movies. But there's a balance to this. And all of these movies are about coming together to create really a product.
Yeah.
But in this case, is to create a new team, right? Whatever the Thunderbolts asterisk is supposed to be. And I think it delivers in what they're trying to do. MCU has always taken, the classics. Winter Soldier is all of the best from the 70s. When they're trying to bring a lot of the genre films, they're taking from other things. I feel the one thing that they've had pushback on is MCU haters are A24 lovers. So they kind of figured out a way to be like, how can we make this a thing? And I love that it came from the director to really pick apart all the people who have worked on A24 movies and kind of be like, well, if the brand is really just made up of people, what if we the people kind of pseudo made the brand a collaboration with Marvel? And that whole trailer that they did about it being cinema, I think it's super effective. And I think it really works here and is, I don't want to say too refreshing, but it's a nice change of pace. I don't think it's too different. Some people are saying that it's like something we've never seen in the MCU before. But I think it's a different flavor of what we've had in the past, in where you actually have these actors who are more brooding than they've been before, I feel.
No, I totally agree. I don't know what I was expecting walking into that movie. I think I was just kind of expecting a best case scenario. It would feel like James Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad. And then Yelena starts talking. And I was like, oh no. Oh shit. Like literally the first line of the movie is there's something wrong with me. And that's immediately after the Marvel logo started fading out auditorily and getting eaten by black. And I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Right when she's about to jump. It's like the darkest intro.
Literally. And I was like, oh my God. And it's still fun. Like, and you talk about it, it makes it sound like it's not fun. It's still fun. It's still funny, but it's one of the movies that I feel like Marvel's learned that like, okay, we can have the comedic relief, but we don't have to do comedic relief at the expense of like a serious moment. Yeah. We can let something settle. We can let something go through a thing, or the moment is just going to be mostly for comedy. Unfortunately, because some of these are much stronger personalities, I do feel like, as expected, Ghost does kind of just fade into the background like a power. I even think that Bucky kind of ends up feeling a little backseat in this other. He has one really cool scene, and then other than that, I'm like way more invested, oddly enough, with like John Walker than I am Bucky, which is weird. So
It's like he's there to co-sign almost.
Pretty much, Yeah, and this brought me back to the MCU. Like I say back to, I just haven't really kept up with any of the shows. I didn't see the last Captain America movie, but then I did see Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's just one of those ones that feels like it's just doing its own thing, the same way that Guardians in the Galaxy 3 just felt like it was doing its own thing. Anything that's been in the universe as much as this one hasn't been delivering for years at this point.
Yeah, it feels like this is sort of the thing they've been trying to get done. The coming up with the next generation of movie stars or superhero characters that can lead the next phase of whatever the MCU is. And they've finally kind of landed on a nice collection of characters and performers that we like, and a tone that works here. And I think a lot of that comes from, as Art was mentioning, the sort of emphasis on people who don't come from the traditional superhero genre filmmaking backgrounds. We talked about Jake Schreier, the director, who's worked on movies like Robot and Frank and was directing Beef on Netflix. Joanna Kahlo, one of the co-screenwriters here, is a showrunner on The Bear. Sunlux, the composers from Everything Everywhere All at Once, doing the score. You have Harry Yeun, the editor of Minari, editing this movie. So you're pulling from a lot of people who work on films that have a bit of more practical feel. And this one also, I thought it was smart that they steered away from a lot of the heroes who their on-screen action involves hand waving and magical lights and auras and stuff like that. This is a collection of superheroes that largely is not flying. They're not like overpowered in a certain way. They're scrappy hand-to-hand combat fighters, and just makes the movie a bit more tactile than I think we've gotten from recent MCU fare.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say, though, they surrounded themselves. I get that this is like a bigger collective of talent, but they've been trying to do the whole like bring prestige people over to make it work. Like they snatched Eternals girl.
Chloe Zhao.
Chloe, thank you. They snagged her, and they really thought that was going to be their Oscar-level superhero movie. And they've tried to do that before. They just snag certain people, assuming that it's going to just immediately translate. So I don't know what the difference is here, if it's just like the combination, if it's in one of these situations where they're like, you know, if it goes bad, at least it's only the Thunderbolts.
Well, it's also bringing in everybody. Like we were saying, when you're bringing in all these people who do all these different things, better ingredients will equal a better product.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's what you get here, easily.
Florence Pugh leads the cast, and it's interesting to see how Marvel has sort of quietly pulled her to the center of this universe. She's now sort of in the Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. role of this generation of the MCU. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, in her own ways, now kind of the new evil Nick Fury. Amanda, do you think Florence Pugh's Yelena will be an effective captain of the next phase of Marvel movies?
I do. I've always liked that character. I'm surprised they went this direction, but I think it works because, you know, not to immediately spoil anything, but they've been in this tailspin. Marvel has been in this tailspin, basically trying to tell us who the next important group of people are going to be. They're trying to force stars on us that people don't care about, some for valid reasons, some for not valid reasons.
Name them. Because we've also, like, Black Panther, right? There was, like, tragedies that happened, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's, like, legitimate tragedies that happen where you lose someone and maybe something should have been planned there.
Right. Yeah. No, they had the twin unexpected events of Chadwick Boseman's death leading to, you know, a compromised situation with the future of Black Panther was going to be a big part of the MCU. And then also the situation with Captain Marvel, where there was a section of the fan base that really rebelled against that movie and its placement within the MCU. And I think even Brie Larson has sort of cooled her relationship to the MCU and maybe seems less interested.
Well, how do you not?
Yeah, they ruined a lot of her movies and stuff. Look, they couldn't even get the villains down, right? The villains were getting canceled left and right.
Issue, like literally what the downside to them planning things so meticulously ahead of time is that the second anything goes wrong, they kind of have to. And I actually honestly think the course correction right now is going to be better. I think it's going to make for a more interesting story.
Agree.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's like I just kind of knew what they were planning for. And I'm like, you just can't suddenly make someone care about Ironheart. No. I'm sorry, like you just can't. Like you made people care about Iron Man. You can't make people care about Ironheart. Yeah. But I do think some people are there. Like I think a young Avengers team would do well because I do think people like Kate Bishop. Miss Marvel has its problems, but I think people really like Kamala.
Yeah, she's a cool fan.
I really like her character, so I'm excited to see more of that. And then, yeah, like Yelena really worked, and that's kind of like a win all around. Like Florence Pugh is, a huge name. But yeah, I think it's just smart to center around like, okay, this is somebody that everyone likes. Whether you liked Black Widow or not, everybody at least seems to like this character and they like this person. So it's really easy to build off of that. And I think it's an interesting direction to go in like a uncharacteristic hero sense of the thing, because they've already done the standard one. So they tried to immediately recreate the standard one and it was never going to work because people were fatigued. People were tired and
You have to think of the period in time.
Yeah.
I am curious how it's going to work, given that Yelena is not the type of character who carries the same cachet as Captain America or Iron Man. But, you're right. Florence Pugh is one of our like big rising movie stars. We just recorded a video doing our actor power rankings, and we were talking about how she's one of the kind of elite young talents that draws people into movies. So it's not, not a bad call to place your bets on somebody like that.
Yeah.
Art, I'm curious your thoughts on the rest of this cast, though, because they've
Kinda
elevated
suck,
some people that I wouldn't necessarily consider as like the future faces of the MCU. Who stood out to you outside of Florence Pugh?
One, I think that's the beauty of it, that they're really taking the leftovers and making something out of it, as opposed to how you guys are saying. She's not even the Black Widow. She is the Captain America. They're making her the leader. I think a lot of that also comes down to she's ready to assume this next position. That's really the premise at the beginning, that she wants to take on a bigger role. I like the responsibilities of being that goalie. And they're like, Black Widow? Yeah, let's not look at anything during her tenure of the position that I'm looking to fill in because, it was very sexualized. Captain America, Iron Man, that's what they have her being. And I think it's really interesting that Avengers was 2012, right? So we're over a decade after that.
Later, yeah.
We are pretty much in a new state of, as you were saying, Amanda, we don't want that, I don't want to call it cliche, but that standard stock superhero.
Yeah, you already did that. So do something new. And then this is setting it up in another way because you do have the contention of like, this is the CIA funded Avengers versus who the heart of the Avengers is still trying to be over here. And I'm interested to see how that pans out. And I think it's going to be interesting when people end up rooting more for this group of like murderers.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like we got the CIA. And
the CIA
it's government funded.
Yeah.
It's still like both. All trouble.
But wait, are these other ones government funded anymore? Like, or is it like NATO? Is Buddy NATO or is he just independent now? Is Sam
I don't think they've
Falcon?
decided yet. But you want to know who had it down, Pat? Captain Rogers, when he did his own thing back in Civil War.
That's what I mean. I'm okay with them reamping that kind of stuff.
I will say this. If we want to get into some criticisms in terms of, obviously we love the movie. We like what they're bringing to it. We know it's kind of like a new Avengers for this new generation. And also the idea that it's like a Suicide Squad. There is a James Gunn hole that is trying to be filled, right? Because that's also a man who not only really built up the MCU, I feel like they're trying to like, he was really good at like world building. That trailer for Superman already is showing you things. Characters from Superman are going to appear in Peacemaker. Yeah. That man knew what he was doing for MCU. Now they have to fix all that.
They botched it. He was supposed to be the head of their celestial.
It should have been.
And that's
I don't know what they did there. I truly think they dropped the ball, and they're kind of scared of what they're going to go up against. That's what I feel. Especially with the summer season. So they're almost mimicking a Suicide Squad here, but you do care for the characters, and a lot of that comes from the acting. You guys were mentioning Bob. I know we don't like her accent, but it kills me the way she says Bob. I like his story. We were mentioning how he was going to be Steven Yeun, and I love Steven Yeun. I do think it would have been good.
Yeah, Art, I was going to ask you. Because Steven Yeun was originally cast as the Sentry, but Ayo Edebiri was originally cast in the Geraldine Viswanathan role. Is there one actor that you think would have helped the movie more, or you like what we got?
I like what we got.
Me too.
I think Steven is too much in the Invincible world, and I heard him say that it really was a scheduling thing because of conflicts, and he wants to come back, but like he had to write a letter 5 times and is worried that like he really pissed people off. Steven, I think you will be fine.
Oh, I think it'll be fine.
I do have thoughts on Ayo, bro. Because she would have been with
Julia.
What are the goats?
The goats.
Yeah.
She is funny, bro. She's doing Veep Junior, right? PG-13 Veep for a new generation. I heard her talk about how they called her up, and that's pretty much what she told Feige. If I could just do my thing, my boys will love it.
Yeah.
Geraldine did what she was supposed to do, and I heard that Geraldine called her up. She said, "Ayo, I need to take this role. Are you cool with it?" And Ayo gave her a blessing.
Nice.
It would have been interesting to have her in there, but Ayo's gonna be Ayo, bro. She's way too massive. She's directing. I think she has a lot of other things in the works. But I do like who they chose there. I think it's interesting to have a Captain America who is half evil, almost taking the Bucky role of like, you know, the he wants to put on something, but he's really dealing with a dark past. We were mentioning Bucky kind of also being, you know, a guy who's trying to work within the system. And it's really funny that he was filming the Trump movie. What's it called?
Apprentice.
While he's being a guy having to be used politically in here.
Yeah.
You know, you're mentioning who's being funded by NATO, who's being funded by the CIA. Marvel's always had this issue when you really look at it more and more. Because you
Who's
got the
funding
Red
Marvel?
That too? You got the Red Guardian back there.
Yeah.
Red Guardian from Russia.
Yeah.
Going from like a communist to at the end of the movie, decked out in the most capitalistic, like, what is it, tied to go, every sponsor possible.
It was good.
It's
NASCAR
funny.
jumpsuit sponsored thing.
Bro. Gran Turismo. He probably got the suit that he had left over.
Right.
Put that bad boy on.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at the fact that this is such an indie movie trying to like troll, trying to sneak in this like nice indie film into a Marvel big project.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they were told, hey, we need to get these ads in here. And they're like, what if we can come up with a really dumb bit? Would that be good? And they just stacked them all on his thing. People like it. People like the Z joke that's in there as well.
Yeah.
But I really like the characters. I found him annoying in Black Widow.
Black
He was
Widow.
a bit much.
Kind of like
And
him
I
in this
wasn't.
movie.
Yeah, me too. I
Yeah.
wasn't
I
excited
love
for
that
him.
convo with them. I
That
love
was
his
good.
yell when Bucky goes, all right, you guys were right about Bob. I don't know. There was a lot
I
in
was
it
gonna
that
say-
felt more heartfelt.
I think that at the beginning you feel a little bit of the clunky awkwardness of trying to establish a group dynamic. I think for me, the whole sequence where they're like a mile underground in that vault or whatever that for on Valentina's
Real
request.
dumb escape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it goes on a little bit too long. There's some fun banter in there,
Yeah.
but really when the movie comes alive is when David Harbour's Red Guardian comes and picks them up.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel like everybody sort of settles into their dynamic with each other, and it
Yeah.
becomes a little bit more of that almost like sibling rivalry, kind of family feuding thing.
It's cute.
Yeah, it works out. We have a question in the live stream here from Josh, who says, do you think they are more interesting than something like the Suicide Squad? He thinks they're more deep. I was curious how you feel this superhero team up compares to Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy, and just in terms of your interest in the squad.
Which one though? Because if you're talking Ayers,
Yeah.
if you're
This
talking
here's-
right, James Gunn's, he had a little bit more. Will Smith was like, my daughter.
Yeah.
No one knows her name.
I would.
But in Suicide Squad, what's it, Polka Dot Man?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's
he's
an
good.
arc in those stories. And I'm going
Yeah.
to leave it with this quote right here to say that, yeah, this one is definitely better. When they talk about the soccer team and she goes, all we did was
Yeah.
lose. And he says, nah, but you were happy.
Yeah. Dude, that's what I mean. That shit hit.
More of that, please. Thank
yeah,
you.
like
I'll take that.
The Suicide Squad has emotional beats more than I expected, but it is still like you do feel like people are very expendable.
Yeah.
This
It was like
movie,
a weasel. Yeah.
yeah. This movie, there were people who were expendable, but there's also people that you're like, this person can never die. You can't let this person die because you're really rooting for them. And it had a mission. And it's probably the first. It actually feels like Marvel listened for once in their life, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, we still have time to fix something here. So they, one of the big critiques was how they handled certain mental illness aspects in the past. Like I think they kind of did a good job with Tony's PTSD, but then they did a really bad job
did
with
like that,
Thor being depressed in Endgame. They were like, it's funny, he's super depressed now, he's gained a bunch of weight. And
Oh,
it's
Thor.
like,
Yeah.
like they just weren't handling. It's like, yeah, dude, he failed in the last second to save people, and then half of his friends and half of the world got blipped, and he's a god. Of course, he's gonna be like
Bro,
gone.
I hate Thor 4 so much. After all that
it's so
trauma, they
good.
built a gauntlet, Baskin Robbins, the thing that literally, who's the one who holds
Yeah.
the gauntlet? Him.
Him.
It snapped right in front of him. And you
Should've
guys are going
aimed
to
for
build
the
one
head.
and ask.
No,
They were
that's what I
losing
mean.
the plot. They were
It was
losing the
fun.
plot in the MCU.
That's
Yeah,
what I
it
mean. They
messed up.
literally thought it was just the side of like they thought they could do no wrong at that
Yeah.
point, and they thought they knew what people liked, and then they were like, okay, people do like funny, but they also like that we've told some like emotionally impactful story. So let's try to do that. Let's make you have to make people care about the characters, and you can't do that if you don't give us a reason to care about the
Exactly.
characters. So this movie's like,
What was the
okay, let's
WandaVision line?
take some people we like. What?
The WandaVision line where people went crazy. You remember that?
The grief is love.
Yeah.
That has
Even the
yeah.
bar. They saw the
it's
buzz
good.
off that,
It's
and then
fucking
like, can we
good.
get a group?
What is grief if not love persevering?
Yeah, and that's a great fucking line. I know it's, been a thing that's been used in other places, but like, no, that's a beautiful fucking line. Like, sorry, it is.
It is.
And that
yeah.
worked out. And that's probably like the only show that they've done that I've actually really liked. So they at least had something, and they always ruin it. And now I hope they just don't.
Like you were saying, the scenes did not end on a joke or an action.
Yes.
They ended on character moments, and that was good.
That's good.
Yeah, just comparing this movie to the other superhero team-ups, at least the ones that are written by James Gunn. I think the ones written by James Gunn are maybe a little funnier than this one is. I do think that I found this to be one of the more successful in terms of like an action film in the team-up. I thought a lot of those sequences worked really well. There's a really early, almost like ode to Old Boy hallway kind of fight that works pretty well. Definitely works better than it did in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's clever too because the shadows there mimic the shadow. Like it's a smart movie too.
It's smart. It's doing its thing.
There's some aesthetic choices too. I don't know if you've seen that Jake Schreier has commented about how he took inspiration for some of the stuff with the void at the end from those images of Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Which are incredibly haunting, but I thought it was one of the more arresting images I can remember from a Marvel movie. Period.
Yeah. And they show it early on too.
When they're saving people, awesome. When they do that bit with the first shadow, my whole theater, both times I saw it, gasped.
I know, right, dude?
That bit was crazy. I like that. I like that a lot. Did you guys feel? I like the third act. Did you feel they could have done more?
No, I'm glad they didn't.
They talked about having some segments of the other people's rooms, and I felt like we just saw them all.
Cool.
I kind of wanted a little bit more because I wanted to see that part of like what those actors were going to bring to it. Because the Florence one was good.
The Florence was really good.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was like a bad third act, but I wouldn't call it particularly memorable. And it was one of those things where throughout the film, they're doing all these things to remind you of the Avengers. John Walker says on your left. At one point, David Harbour says, you assembled your friends, the throwing.
Yeah.
There's also, and then of course we have the big third act climax in New York City as Rubble falls to remind us the first Avengers movie. And like that first Avengers movie, that whole sequence is much more memorable.
Of course.
I like you said, maybe they could have gone a little bit deeper with the whole idea of people's rooms and exploring the traumas.
I hope they release them.
If they have them.
But it works. It doesn't let the movie down. It just maybe just doesn't elevate it in my eyes.
Yeah. I think I like that I guess they could have done more of the rooms, but I know some people were like, I don't know why it wasn't bigger. And I'm like, no, making it bigger would have been the problem because like this, even though
MCU
Sentry
brain,
has the ability to be clearly a world destroying victim, the enemy here is mental illness. Like that is the enemy that's going on here. And it's like, it's your own demons.
Yeah.
And how you have to actually have compassion for yourself to fight them. You can't actually physically you can't beat them up. You can't out anger them. You have to have compassion for yourself. And I think that that's like a really cool thing for people to know and for a Marvel movie to do.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe alludes to one of my other, I don't want to say issues with the film, but I felt at sometimes a little bit of like, where are we going? Who are we fighting? What are we doing? Because I guess in the end, the biggest villain is Valentina, who is also not sort of a villain.
Well, that's because they kind of maintain themselves being villains at the end. They're like, okay, I guess if we're going to do this.
Almost like the MCU using directors, like they use their members in order to be able to keep making another one. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's going to be. Whatever message you're pushing with these people, it will default back. I think it's interesting that at the beginning, we were mentioning Brie Larson. We were mentioning a lot of these actors who couldn't do other roles. It's the opposite now. It's almost like they heard that out too. Dang. They feel like we're imprisoning them. Let's do the opposite. I don't know what the next phase will be. If they are going to trust directors like they did with Jake. I realized Jake worked on Spider-Man Homecoming. He went to college with, what's his name? That's why he's in the special thanks for all of his movies, John Watts. So when you think of things in this movie, they connect with John Watts. Who's directing the upcoming summer film that they have on their slate. That intrigues me. But it also shows me why he was able to do a good job, because he was already in there. And I think that that's a big part. Don't be a newbie that they toss in there. The fact that he had some experience on set with the
It's
MCU.
helpful.
I think, that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Let's shift our focus forward a little bit, because at the end of the film, as the Thunderbolts move to arrest Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, she announces them as the new Avengers. And if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry. Disney marketing made sure that you would know about their new title as well. Art, what's more interesting to you, the new Avengers reveal or that Disney waited a whopping 4 days to do it?
Are y'all on the side that they were going to hold it off, or that this was always planned?
For the reveal?
Some people, I think it was always planned, but some people feel they were going to hold off on it, but that the
I feel like
box
it didn't do well
office
that
wasn't
open.
there?
I feel like it might not have done as well as they were expecting opening weekend. So they're like, let's give people a reason to go. But I think it's so funny because I don't think that's a thing that would make people want to see the movie.
Right, and you would have
again? You're doing it again?
You'd have to pre-plan all the rollout.
That's the
for
thing.
that.
I don't think you
Yeah.
throw together a marketing campaign like that
That's what I mean.
in
I
like
think I'm
the
thinking,
weekend.
That's what I mean. I feel like they
maybe-
had it ready to go, but like now. I think maybe they would have waited to now.
Maybe they pull the ripcord a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it was
guess.
that week. It was like that weekend.
It was
Yeah.
that weekend,
like a
but
few
again,
days-
if you're
no,
paying
not
for
that
that
weekend, but,
bit,
like, a
especially
week
for a lot of the
later.
marketing, where they rip it. I don't know if you guys saw Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
Stitch
Yeah,
came out of
broke
it after.
through.
So we're just gonna get like 20 different posters. It's gonna be like the I Am Legend
know.
subway scene.
Yeah.
No, I don't mind it,
Yeah.
but I do think you have to give people time. We do live in this world where it's like that's a massive spoiler. We do spoiler-filled explainers, but like you got to click it, right? Like you are consensually inviting yourself into spoilers. You go on the AMC app and the poster is New Avengers.
New Avengers. But like at least I
But
don't
that's
think
like
that's the
getting-
draw to the movie. But
That's like getting spoiled that there was 3 Spider-Men, though. It was a thing everybody knew was going to be.
It
What was
wasn't
the aspect
exciting.
going to be?
If
Yeah.
I don't know why
Yeah.
people gasped when it happened. I was like, okay, this is what we thought was going to happen.
The thing we
Like, if
knew
you're in-
was happening. Yeah, I'm telling you.
If you're in the world caring about these things, you're already kind of like in tune to them in a way.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then I don't think you care about a new Avengers.
Care to
reveal.
complain.
You're right.
I do like it. I like the whole idea and concept of it. How the real world is receiving it, I think, is more fascinating because I heard that he did test screenings with the idea that people were going to cheer, and they didn't. So the whole post-credit scene, I've seen people explain it that it was their reaction to Captain America. No, that would be way too fast to flip. It is the opposite. They tested the movie, and all those lines at the end were what they decided to get ahead of. People are going to make fun of them. People are going to do this.
Yeah, of course.
That is genius. That's what
because
you
that's
should
what
be
people
doing.
have already been saying.
Yeah. So to
Even
me,
before
that
this
worked.
movie.
That works so well. I like that.
Because that's the thing. They've been like, the whole thing with Marvel is that like, you can't tell us who
And they're finally
these
getting
next
it.
you can't tell us who
Yeah.
the next characters to care about are. You built our trust the first time.
And they're freezing so
can't
many
just-
characters.
Yeah.
The Eternals, Shang-Chi. Like, people are just
They-
out there
and they
coasting,
bomb-
dude.
They're just gone. And it's like, they're never going to come back.
I don't
They
get
do
it.
bad.
I don't get it. But
Yeah.
in terms of, like, the future, as Zach was mentioning, Jake has been up for discussion. They said Googler was up for discussion. X-Men, I mean, it's really the next big thing that people are
I'd be
dealing
okay
with.
with Jake taking X-Men. Because I have currently I love X-Men so much, and I have no faith in what they plan to do with those characters. And I'm really hoping that, because they kept announcing people. They kept announcing people, and I was
Zach
like,
keeps-
why are they coming back?
Zach keeps mentioning Sean Levy. I don't agree with him on that, but I do feel like if we can...
Don't put that on
get
me.
it.
Don't put that
Never.
evil on me.
Never show
You know what I've been wanting, though? I do. If they're welcome to what Jake did, and if they're willing to bring in some bigger people, I want that M. Night Marvel movie that they keep joking about. I want a big director to come in and make a splash.
Yeah.
I don't know how we all felt about Multiverse of Madness. I know Zach and I did like it.
I like
and
it
respected
overall.
it because it's our man. But we
Overall,
also
I
know
like
how
it.
much he was compromising. And I don't know what directors we would want to come compromise their vision.
But I'm
for the bag.
wondering if his compromised, if what he had in mind would have, because I'm like, I don't know.
For Multiverse or...
Yeah,
Upcoming
multiverse. I
X-Men.
don't like. I don't know if what they made him do. I don't know what he would have come up with separately would have been.
Yeah. It made him
But just
Billy,
based
though,
on how
so-
he cared about certain characters or didn't care about certain
Yeah.
characters, I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
At the end, that's I think well, besides Deadpool, that did pretty well, and still being
Yeah.
very in universe. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone's really enjoyed even the stuff around that very much.
I think it was a good post credit scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because apparently it was shot 4 weeks before release by the Russo brothers, not even by
Yup.
Jake Schreier.
Yeah.
So we're over a year later. The Thunderbolts are discussing copyright issues. They're getting sued by Sam. Suddenly, the Fantastic Four ship is seen in the skies. What did you guys think
The logo
about
and
this
everything, bro.
teaser?
I think it's cool. It's kind of what I expected when they're like, oh, there's the celestial thing. I'm like, oh, it's going to be the Fantastic Four. And I think that movie looks good. I'm actually quite interested to see what that ends up being. I'm, dare I say it, a little excited for a Marvel movie for the first time in God knows how many years. So
They might be rounding a corner.
they might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stock is certainly looking up, and maybe part of that is just because it got pretty low. But
Yeah, they had to stop. They just stopped production on so much immediately. They're like,
Right.
okay, this isn't fucking working. So we have to just stop and take a minute and like reassess.
You do. You have to, dude.
But they've reassessed, and I think you can see in Thunderbolts they're sort of shifting their gears and working in a mode that reminds me more of the Marvel movies that I think I enjoyed more previously. That more people
Absolutely.
enjoyed previously. Amanda, I did want to ask, as I show off briefly the Thunderbolt poster that I picked up,
Beautiful.
but got one for both of you as well. I don't know how I'll get it. I'll keep a hold of them. This, as somebody who cares a bit more about the comics in general than me, is this a good enough lineup of heroes for the new Avengers? And B, is this a good enough lineup of movie stars for the new Avengers?
It's like 50-50. I would say, no offense to Ghost. I don't know. You're one of the side people. You're still here. You're still part of the team. But you're not round one Avengers. You're Avengers once we get into like...
And she's the only one who was in theaters with the Ant-Man movie. Black Widow went home.
I know.
Other Cap Juniors coming from
Hey, we got Bucky.
Falcon.
We got Bucky.
Oh yeah, true. But
That's legacy,
Bucky's like an all. Yeah, you're right.
But
Bucky's like an
you've got
all-star.
Florence Pugh. You've got David Harbour. You've got Sebastian Stan. Like right there. And then honestly, Wyatt Russell's kind of like one of those, people who know who he is really like him. He's kind of one of those like underrated people.
He's Nepo Baby legacy, but
Nepo Baby legacy.
I think we see some of that charm in this role for sure, more than I did in the
Who's
show.
the better Nepo baby,
Yeah.
him or Pullman?
Ooh.
Probably Wyatt as of right now. We'll have to see what,
I'd
what,
go
what
Wyatt.
Pullman.
Why?
We'll see what Pullman does.
But he's played Bob twice though. It's
He's
not
played
good.
Bob,
Ain't
yeah,
here.
I remember he tried to
Pullman
get them to
did.
change the name in this century, and they're like, "That's his name, though."
That's his name, bro. Like I don't know what to tell
I
you.
don't know what to tell you. You don't want the heat that'll come down if we don't use the name.
Yeah.
A really strange coincidence, though.
It is, yeah. But yeah, no, I think I don't think when they say New Avengers, I'm sure it's going to be some like weird. They're going to do something weird, and I'm sure Sam will probably get folded into the mix at some point because you'll have to band together against the common thing.
Yeah. And
What
I
is he
also wouldn't be
thinking?
surprised if we get some of the like Shang-Chi generation brought back
Yeah,
in some
because Shang-Chi
capacity.
was one of the only good ones of that era, and
And he
he's
like
just kind of
literally
been in
just
the
got
back.
hired. Isn't that the ending to Shang-Chi? He gets like hired. He gets to go to a meeting and he goes, "Oh, this is really cool."
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing.
And
When's the next
Deadpool
day at
too,
work,
I guess
bro?
technically, I don't
Deadpool
know.
technically is an Avenger. I don't get it.
You know,
but
we'll see what happens.
what is Wilson doing? That makes no sense. What is
don't
he
know.
doing? Fighting
I don't
again?
know.
No one's gonna be on your side, bro. They didn't even go to your movie. It's ridiculous.
That's what I mean. It's just
That was a
some of
movie
it's
that
weird.
ended with him talking it out like he did in Falcon. This new Captain America for Sam Wilson that just talks it out. I hated it. He talked it out with a Hulk. These guys talked it out, and this is how you do it.
This one made
is how,
sense.
yeah, this is how it works. And
Again,
I
because
appreciate
it
him
wasn't
a
just
lot more.
talking someone down. It was literally like making someone realize that like you have to have compassion for yourself at the end of the day. So
The villains were the shadows we fought along the way. That's
yeah,
what it was.
literally though. But then you do have like a fun antagonist out of Valentina, you know?
Zach, how do you feel people are now going, you know what? I do feel the void. Now that it's an MCU Funko Pop, I do understand these feelings of the void.
Yeah, I mean, I thank God for the MCU for bringing depression to. I don't know, man. I have all sorts of thoughts about the Funko Popization of depression and anxiety,
weird,
but
Yes.
But it's also progress. I don't know. I sound like Bucky.
I don't know. Dochi's got a song about it. Anyway, we any final thoughts on Thunderbolts or where we're at in the MCU before we move on?
No, I think
Let the
that's...
directors direct.
Yeah,
That's
let the
what I see
directors
here.
direct.
That's when you get
I
your
think
best
a
projects.
big look for Jake Schreier, who stepped up to the
Hell yeah.
plate and really delivered. I think here. So curious to see how else he gets used in the MCU in the future and where the MCU goes from here, because it's an optimistic sign.